Greetings, mortals. You have stumbled into Open Indie, the crypt of curious creations and forbidden fun. I am your Cryptmaster, and I will drag you into the very shadows of indie gaming.
Thank you, dear Cryptmaster, aka Lee Williams. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Can you please introduce yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Lee Williams. I'm sort of one half of the core development team for Cryptmaster. Paul Hart did all the, he did the lion's share really. He did the coding, the art. We collaboratively did the design and I did the writing and the design and the voice of the Cryptmaster.
Lee, how do you feel about your game Cryptmaster? Are you happy how it all went down, like the development, the release, and the reception in general?
Yes, we're very happy. I think really, the development was a lot of fun, to be honest. It was a wonderful game to develop, and the release was really positive. You know, we've had just lots of great feedback about the game. The release we were slightly overshadowed, I remember, that week because there was about 10 games we all released on the same day. And also we were kind of overshadowed by Hades 2 early access, suddenly shadow dropping a couple of days before. So we were a bit panicky on release, but it seemed to find its audience, it's found its niche, and it's been lovely getting all the, the feedback for it.
Amazing. Can you describe your game to us for everyone who hasn't played Cryptmaster yet? Well, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, Lee, can you explain to us what do players see and hear when they play, and what kind of mood are you going for?
Right, I can certainly try. It's been a very it's a very difficult game to describe quickly to anybody. We had a lot of trouble trying to come up. Thank you. Yeah, we had a lot of trouble trying to come up with a sort of elevator pitch. I think we ended with something like it's a dungeon crawling word-based puzzle RPG, which sounds complicated, but when you start playing it, I think it becomes quite clear quite quickly. So as you said, the whole game is based around words. It's almost a sort of love letter to words and language. I think that was how I viewed it from my side when we were making it. And what you do is it's purposely got a very old school look. So, I mean, Paul and I were channeling a sort of nostalgia from our younger years, I think. So it's designed to look like a sort of pen and ink illustration from an old game book from the 80s or an old D&D manual. And it also has the sort of grid-based movement of an old dungeon crawler, sort of Eye of the Beholder, those sort of games. So you're roaming around a dungeon, but the twist in Cryptmaster is that, as you said, you do everything with words. So you gain the skills of your characters by guessing them, almost like in a game of Hangman. And the way you guess them is you get letters to feed into those skills, and you can loot letters from enemies' names when you defeat them. You can pick up letters from chests if you manage to guess the object that's in the chest. You can get letters in a number of different ways in the game, and gradually you build your party up by guessing at these words. And then in combat, you use those words, those skill words, for different effects. So you type in combat, you'll type in hit or zap, or all kinds of weird things that you can do. And so aside from that, the game, I think, is it's a puzzle game, probably above all. There are lots of riddles in the game. There are lots of secrets, lots of hidden things. But we did want to make it as accessible as possible, so it was important for us. It's got a really robust sort of hint system in there as well. Lots of different tiers of difficulty you can have.
Yeah, the hint system was really, really great. Like at some parts, I was really struggling, like in the later part of the game, with some of the words or the riddles. What items are in the chest or something like that. So that was helpful from time to time.
Yes, yeah, I think a lot of people have found that, and I think it probably also. I mean, your English is perfect, is wonderful, but when you get towards the end of the game, I was going for more obscure words and sometimes more colloquial sort of words that I think it can be difficult for a non-native speaker to be aware of sometimes, because we had to keep the difficulty ramping up. So I think the hint system has been, useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. But I learned lots of new words, to be honest, which was great, especially with all the skills, because you always have to type out your actions, as you said. And I knew them by heart, like zap, jab, jostle. I didn't know before what jostle means. But I knew everything by heart, which was really fascinating.
I'm glad it's been educational as well.
Yes, for sure. How did you come up with the idea for the game?
That's a tough one, because we didn't. There was never a sort of moment when we just settled on what the game was going to be, what it was going to be about. It came about really sort of by increments, very gradually. We started making a completely different game. We started making a game about pirates, and you were on a pirate ship, and in its first version, you had to interact with everything by shooting it with your pistol. And it was sort of fun, but then we thought, what about if you could shoot words out of people's sort of speech bubbles as well? So you change the meaning of their sentences. And so we started doing that, playing around with a system where you could, change things by deleting words. And it was a sort of fun novelty, but we couldn't see how to make a full game out of it. So gradually it changed, but we stuck with the word angle, and it changed to a game where you would collect words and then put them on other objects. So you would collect the word rusty, and then you put it on your sword, and now it's a rusty sword. And you could sort of alter the environment and alter what your character had by doing that. And then I think we changed it to like a D&D style game, because it seemed to make more sense, in that setting. And gradually, just bit by bit, became what it is. First of all, it was more of a sort of standard. We didn't have a necromancer in it. It was just more of a standard sort of dungeon crawler. Then I think we discovered I think the Cryptmaster himself only came about when we thought we want to have some kind of tutorial in there, because the mechanics at that time were quite complex. So we thought we're going to need some system for explaining this to players that's not going to be, a wall of text. So we had the idea of the Cryptmaster. I don't know if do you remember there was an old board game called Atmosphere? And it was, I'm going back quite a long time now. It was it was on a VHS cassette, and you had a board game with it as well, but you played the VHS in the background, and every now and then there'd be like a clap of thunder, and this hooded character would appear and change the rules of the game or tell you what you had to do next. And we both remembered that very fondly. So we thought, well, we could do with a character like that. And to start with, he was only going to come up very, very occasionally, and he would be like a sort of jump scare, and he would appear on screen and tell you what to do, give you a little tutorial. And then he increasingly became more and more a part of the game. And we leaned into the current style, which I would say, you asked what players might be feeling playing the game, and I think the thing that surprises a lot of players is when they see the screenshots, they think it's going to be a horror game possibly, or something really spooky, but actually it's not. It's really goofy. The mood we wanted was much closer to a really cheesy sort of B movie, that sort of thing, than anything really scary. I don't think there are any really scary moments in the game. It's more
the chickens, maybe.
The chickens are terrifying, yes. To the Cryptmaster, at least, they are terrifying.
That's true.
But but in general, we wanted it to be sort of. I think we realised early on that the system we had using words and letters was so playful and so inherently sort of goofy that it wouldn't work with a serious setting. You can't really have a serious setting, and then at the same time you're expecting players to grab letters off of names of bugs and things like that. So we thought it's gonna have to be a bit tongue in cheek, and that's when we leaned into the sort of spoof vibe that it has now, which I think was the right choice, because also it made it a lot of fun to develop. I think that's the sort of thing I most like writing, to be honest, is that sort of comedy. So yeah, so I think hopefully when players play the game, the main thing we had in mind throughout was just that we want them to be entertained. We want to get them to be able to play through the game from beginning to end, and hopefully there'll be new mechanics coming along often enough to just keep them having fun.
No, you did absolutely the right choices. It was really, really fun to play. This is such an amazing game, and it's so unique. It's always great to play some games with fresh ideas, new versions, maybe of already ideas that or gameplay that you're used to. But that was really great. So really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
How come that you're the voice of the Cryptmaster? Like, who came up with the idea, and how did you develop this character?
I came up with the idea of being the voice, I think, but I did it sort of sneakily, because I've got a hidden thespian side that I've not been able to exercise for years, and I've always fancied doing a bit of voice acting. But I've never. This is my first time doing any voice acting. Was this game?
Oh, okay.
I've not done any before. So, but I really wanted to have. I fancied having a go at it. So when we came up with the character as a Cryptmaster, I said, "Oh, I'll just do some placeholder." I said to Paul, "Just a little bit. I'll just do a bit of placeholder, and then later we'll get a proper actor in to do the lines." But then secretly, I put a lot of effort into doing the placeholder voiceover, which I wouldn't usually do. But I was quite keen to have a go at it, and thankfully Paul took the bait. And when he heard it, and his wife listened to it as well, and they both said, "Actually, you're pretty good. I think we'll keep you doing the voice." So
Amazing.
I said then, of course, "Oh, are you sure? I'd much rather get a voice actor." But secretly, I was very pleased. that had been my plan all along. And
That's cool.
it turned out that it was the best choice, not because I'm the best actor, but because there are so many lines in the game, and a lot of them get bolted together, from parts of sentences. So they need a lot of re-recording so they don't sound clumsy when they're put together. And there are so many of them that I think we couldn't have done it if we'd hired a voice actor to do it. It would have been, first of all, it would have been too expensive. And secondly, you couldn't have expected somebody to, keep re-recording things in the way that I did. I mean, I read practically a whole dictionary of words for the Cryptmaster just so that he can respond to so many things that people type in.
And how did you develop his character? I think he wants to be scary and respected by people, but he's like really a doofus.
Yeah, he is. He's a big doofus. That's the exact perfect word for him. Yeah, he's. I don't know how he came about exactly. He sort of started out like that. I think I was aware at the beginning that I wanted him to banter with the player. I really wanted there to be some kind of connection there, and I wanted something for the game that felt, I don't know, almost like a sitcom, if that makes sense. So I was very keen to stage lots of moments where we would lead the player into doing something a bit silly and then tell them off for it, or some things like that. So stage these little comic moments, and I was a bit worried at the beginning that this could seem off-putting to players. If you have a narrator who's belittling you and kind of putting you down and telling you off for things, that could get a bit wearing. But I think people forgive it in the Cryptmaster because actually he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have a clue. He's really arrogant, and he thinks he knows everything, and he thinks he's this great undead, overlord. But actually, he's a big doofus. He's just a big doofus himself. So I think that softened the edge, if you like, of him telling you what to do. Even before we released the game, just before we released, I was still a bit nervous. I remember thinking people are just going to hate him. They're going to hate the fact that he tells them what to do, and he tells them off for things, and he sort of makes fun of things. But actually, once we released, I thought, actually, I should have gone harder on that. I should have doubled down on that, because those are the moments that people seem to have enjoyed the most. The times when he gets angry or he gets upset about things, and he's just like a big kid.
But it's so fun. Like, I always loved his lines, and when he was telling me off, I'm like, come on, give it to me.
Yeah,
It's so much fun just listening to him and what lines he has to say. It's amazing.
yeah, it's been the nicest thing to see people streaming the game, and I can listen in real time to them having that sort of banter with him that I hope they would, and people just saying, "Oh, shut up," when he has a go at them, and people will answer him, and it's just really fun.
Really great. You've already mentioned it, but I also wanted to ask in more detail because the Cryptmaster and other NPCs in the game, they always respond to you no matter what you type. How exactly did you manage to come up with an answer for every word the player types out? You already said that you had to record many, many lines all over again. And how much work exactly was this? And did you use AI to help with some of the responses?
Yeah, no, we didn't use any AI, and it's been kind of satisfying to see that a lot of people did think we had used some AI for that, but we didn't. All we did really was we just a lot of work and sort of smoke and mirrors. I think people assume that there's nobody foolish enough to sit for hours reading the entirety of a dictionary with a sort of questioning inflection, but actually I am that fool. I did do that. It probably helped that we did it. We made a lot of it during the COVID lockdowns. And I just kind of sat here in my little room going a bit sort of quietly crazy, just reading through a dictionary, just going, aardvark, abacus, going word by word through like that.
Oh, no.
Um, and yeah, so there's a lot of words, and we have a system which is quite simple but quite effective. I think that surprised us how well it worked. Whereby when it types a word in, it basically first of all looks to see if that word is one which has a specific response, like a skill. Is that one that's going to trigger an effect, either in the particular place where they are? Is that an active word that does something in that spot, or is that a word that's associated with a skill from one of the characters or something? And if it is, it does that. It plays that effect. If it isn't, it looks to see if the word is in the dictionary. We have a big pool of words that we've recorded in the dictionary pool.
Mhm.
And if it's in the dictionary pool, it then looks to see if it's one that has a specific bespoke response. So there are examples of words that he has a specific response to that word. So if you type Riz, for example, if you type Riz, there's a bespoke response to somebody who types Riz into the game. And there are some other pools that have a bespoke response with a number of synonyms. It checks to see if it's one of those words. If it is, it plays that specific response. If it isn't, it looks to see if it's in one of the sort of subcategories, one of the pools of words. And we have things like food. When I recorded all these words, I dumped them into different folders, different categories. So is it
Okay.
food? Is it a body part? Is it a spooky word? Is it a profession or job? Lots of different pools that I can't think of any more off the top of my head, but there are quite a lot of them, different pools like that. If it is one of those, then what it does is it plays the word from the dictionary. It plays the dictionary response for that word, and then it picks at random a quip from a large pool of quips which have something to do with that category. So, for example, if you type in head, it will find its head category in the body parts category, and he'll say head, and then he'll say one of the quips that are to do with body parts. So he'll say if something falls off, just leave it, whatever, something that's relevant for that that category. If it falls through all those, I sort of picture it in my head like a coin sorter. So you drop the coin in, and it either goes into a bespoke thing or it doesn't. It rolls down to the next level. It falls into a category. If it doesn't fall into one of those categories, it rolls down again. And then it looks to see if it's it might just be a dictionary word in no particular category, in which case he just says the word, and then he'll say one from a large pool of quips which are like, what are you talking about? Why did you say that? What are you mumbling about now?
Mhm.
And if it's not in the dictionary at all, then it will either, there's a chance he just won't bother to respond to it, or there's a chance that he will just give you again one from a big pool of quips that are just like, what are you talking about now? And if it's a very short word, there are we recorded the letters of the alphabet as well. So if it's a short word he doesn't recognize, he'll spell it. So say it's cat. I mean, he would recognize cat, but say, he would say CAT. What does that mean? Something like that.
Okay.
And so by doing that and just going, as I say, just going a little bit crazy on how much we put into it, we came up with, a lot of response. It's surprisingly rare to see people type in words that he doesn't recognize at all. He's got a response for most things.
And so also had to record then all letters of the alphabet individually.
Yeah, all the letters of the alphabet individually, lots of dictionary words, all sorts of things. I was just sat here, as I said, I was sat here with the door closed, my kids occasionally knocking on the door saying, "Are you all right in there, Dad? What are you doing?" While I just rambled in this hammy voice.
Did you also learn some new words during development?
I did. I learned a lot. I'm a very innocent person, and I learned a lot of kind of swear words and a lot of words for sexual activities that I hadn't been aware of before, so the Cryptmaster could recognize those. We did like a poll of everybody who works for the publisher and said, can you think of like the filthiest words possible? And just give us a long list of them so we can put them in a pool and the Cryptmaster can tell you off for using them.
I got it.
So there are a lot of words there that I thought, I didn't know that was a thing.
It's thought of everything.
I'm just too innocent. Yeah. So there's a lot of, because we had a nice balance, really, that the game is actually, it's quite family friendly. I think it's as I say, it's not actually scary. It's suitable for kids to play or families to play, really. So we don't have, the Cryptmaster himself doesn't say anything. He might make little innuendos, but he doesn't say anything really inappropriate, and he doesn't swear himself. But if you swear at him or say, and it can be quite obscure terms to him, then he will recognize them and he'll respond to them, so that you realize, oh man, he knows that. He actually knows what I'm talking about. And he'll tell you off.
I had such moments, yeah.
Yeah. Did you get the swear jar, I wonder, at all?
No, I didn't. I wasn't.
Oh, you're very good. You're very good then. Yes, because if you swear too many times, he just gets fed up and he puts a little swear jar in the corner and he puts a soul in it every time you swear from then on.
Oh, that's so funny.
To tell you off.
Oh, I need to test that.
Yes, yeah. I think you got to swear about 10 times. So
okay.
Yeah. But if you persist with it, he'll get really fed up and he'll make you use the swear jar.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, it's great that you also kind of have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
amazing. We were going to have him. We never put it in the end. We were going to have him in the final battle smash the swear jar and give you back your souls, but we didn't. We never got around to doing that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's some great ideas. Yeah, thanks for explaining this. This is really great to see how it works. And yeah, it sounds like a lot of work for sure. Cryptmaster has this black and white look. Why did you choose this look?
We wanted to do a dungeon crawler. I think it was more or less immediately black and white as soon as we settled on the idea of doing a sort of dungeon crawler. I think a lot of it was we wanted it to have a sort of 80s feel. I guess I think Paul and I are both of an age when that we remember growing up, kind of swords and sorcery and D&D. I used to love fighting fantasy game books. I don't know if you had those in Germany.
Maybe I don't remember.
Game books in America, they had Choose Your Own Adventure. In Britain, the fighting fantasy were more popular. So they, if you want to do this, turn to page 52. If you want to do this, turn to page 78. That sort of thing. And you would roll dice and fight in them as well. And they had beautiful, beautiful sort of artwork in them, like black and white pen and ink kind of illustrations. So we had those in mind already, and the sort of illustrations that you used to find in sort of modules for Dungeons and Dragons, those sort of pictures. So we wanted that very sketchy sort of feel to, hand drawn look to it, and that's all Paul. I can't take any credit for any of that. He came up with the art style then, using that sort of thing as inspiration, and it just seemed to sort of fit it seemed to sort of fit the mood of the game. Again, it's something we were worried about. Were we, really limiting the reach of the game by making it black and white? And not everybody likes that, but it doesn't seem to turn many people off. It seemed to, go down quite well. I think most people sort of understood the look, the mood we were going for with it. And there are options in the game. You can tint it with color if you want, but if we'd have done full color as a very, very small team, it would have taken up more of our time as well. And we just kind of felt, I think we could do better things with our time, so to speak. When you're in a small team, you've got to make these sort of choices. Well, do we want to spend an extra couple of months on coloring the artwork, or do we want to spend a couple of extra months on making sure we've got enough different environments in the game? You have to make those sort of decisions.
Yeah, no, I really like the black and white look for sure. For me, it doesn't always have to be color. It just needs to look nice and fit the setting, and I think it perfectly does. It's a crypt, so
Yes,
I actually don't expect a lot of color anyway.
That's it. I thought if we do color, there's not going to be a lot of color down there in any case. So yeah.
Exactly. Which feature in the game are you most proud of?
We've already covered really the sort of the banter with the NPCs and the Cryptmaster, which I'm personally quite proud of, because as I said earlier, I wasn't certain it was going to work, and it was just a lovely surprise when it did. I think something else that we're both really proud of in the game, and this one is to Paul's credit because he did most of the design work on this. But the card game, we were surprised that the card game, whatever, in the game where you play a game with cards and you can use the letters of the names of your cards to you fill in the letters and have different effects. And that was more or less just a sort of throwaway thing. I think I remember what we felt at one point that the player wasn't getting enough rewards for things. You were getting letters as rewards, but we had so many different puzzles in the game, and the skulls and the chess and all these ideas for things. But it was sort of boring if all you ever got from them was just more souls or more letters. So we wanted to have key events in the game reward you with something a bit different. So I think we thought to begin with, we were just going to do collectible cards. So it wasn't going to be a card game. We were just going to have little collectible bits of artwork that you could gather. But then once we started making those, we thought, well, why not make a simple card game? An RPG. We'd always said, if we're going to do a sort of RPG, well, it should have cards and it should have fishing, just because they're kind of traditional. So we put both of those things in. And the card game originally was just going to be very simple. We thought it was going to be more like the fishing, just something really straightforward. But Paul put a lot of work into it and came up with this, what I think is really good. I enjoy playing the card game in the game.
Me too.
He put a lot of work into that, and it just it turned out better than we expected. I think it was one of those sort of things that you just, when you start playing it, you surprise yourself and you think, oh wow, actually this is fun. And it's a lovely feeling when you discover that something that you just weren't really sure about, but you thought, we'll give it a try. Suddenly it turns out to be quite fun. And then from there we put a bit more effort into the card game, and the big update we did about a month ago, we focused on expanding the cards, because it had been another nice surprise to see that a lot of players had also enjoyed the card game. Not everybody, but then we were always aware we weren't going to make it. It's not essential to progress in the game, the cards. It's an optional activity, but a lot of people really seem to enjoy it. And watching people on stream, a lot of people played it again and again. So we expanded it a bit for the latest update, and that was, I think, that was a nice moment when we discovered that worked.
You can imagine. Yeah, when I saw the card game, I was like, oh, triple triad, amazing.
Yes.
So I really love having card games in RPGs, and doing something different, like from time to time. So this was really great. A great idea.
Yeah, I think it just, as much as anything, it just breaks up the other activities. You might think, I'll just do that for a bit for fun. And
Exactly. What bug in the game did you like so much that it became a feature? Was there anything?
Oh, let's see. There must have there were lots of bugs in the game, not just literally, but I mean, yeah, in development there were. I don't know if there's anything. I don't know if there was exactly a bug that became a feature. There were lots of things which, as I said, like with the card game, were sort of happy accidents that we weren't quite expecting to turn out the way they did or to turn out as well as they did. One thing there was early on, I don't think we had as many. There's one of the characters as you'll know in the game is a sea witch called Nyx, and a lot of her spells summon sea creatures. And I don't think she did that to start with. I think there was one where she would have like a pet crab, and there was a bug where it kept endlessly spawning crabs. I remember we posted it on social media at the time, because it looked really funny. She just sprayed crabs across the screen, filled up the room with crabs. And I think that was probably when we realized actually there's something quite funny in having her just generate sea creatures. Plus, I think Paul had a bunch of models of aquatic life that we didn't want to go to waste. I think left over from the pirate game. So we thought this would be great. Actually, why doesn't she just? And there's something quite funny in it as well. She's a sea witch, but there's no sea around. But she can still summon the sea creatures. She just drops them on people.
Amazing.
They can still be useful on land. She just creates a portal and they drop through and hit people. So yeah, I think that started as a sort of bug. And then we just threw the whole lot in. We threw all the models he had. So you've got you can summon whales, sea urchins, sharks, salmon, all sorts of things.
That's great.
There's I can't remember what we called it, fisherman's feast or something, where she just summons a bunch of random sea creatures.
Oh, that's amazing. You've already mentioned the updates that came out recently this year in May, the anniversary update from Cryptmaster. You expanded the card game, and it also had new characters, a new enemy, and new features. Do you guys have any more plans for the game? Maybe DLCs or some sort of that?
Possibly, yes. Well, at the moment we're working on the next game, so we've moved on. We've started on something new, which is I think it will have a similar sort of vibe to Cryptmaster. It's not going to be a sequel, although I won't rule that out one day because we both feel there's more things we wanted to do in that world and with those mechanics. You know, there's so many fun things you can do with words.
Exciting.
But this one is something quite different. But hopefully it will appeal to people who like the first game, who like Cryptmaster. But also we are hoping in the future to maybe release one or two more updates. One thing I think we'd like to do is a kind of new game plus mode at some point, because it seems to me that it would be relatively straightforward for us to redo the skills. So each character would have a different skill tree, because then it just not everybody would want to go back and play it again, understandably, but some people really enjoy it, and that's wonderful. And I think if we were to do something else, that would probably be the next thing we do, to have like a new game plus, so you can start again from the beginning, but there are all different words to guess, and probably some new chests and little surprises along the way as well.
That would be great. Keep me posted.
I will do. Thank you. I will do.
Let's talk about you as a game developer. How did you get started in game development?
I always say my route into games development is definitely not the optimal route, and it's kind of weird and haphazard. I mean, I've had effectively a number of careers before I was a games developer. I did, when I was younger, I did lots of things. I didn't start in games development at all. I was a labourer for many years. I was an electricity linesman, a security guard. I did all sorts of odd careers. Then when I was about 30, I took a job in China. I moved to China, taught English in rural China for about 5 years. And then I married. My wife was a colleague I met in China. We moved back to this country. I continued teaching. went to university finally. Went back to university, got a degree, became a teacher. I had a whole career, 10 years in teaching. I was in special education, and I used to run a sort of centre for children with emotional and behavioural regulation difficulties. So I did that for a long time. On the side, I started writing. I'd always wanted to write, so I started having stories published in magazines and things. I won a couple of prizes, enough to sort of encourage me to do more with it. And then I remember one day, it must have been about 15 years ago now, probably. This is, aging me. They're still like that. I went on the TIG forums. I don't know if you know the indie game forums online, and it was a really interesting time to be on those forums. I know Notch had just been on there he was posting his devlog for Minecraft when I first went on there. I remember. So I remember seeing Minecraft as it was being made, and offering feedback, and I just put a message on there saying, look, I'm a writer. These are samples of my work. I've been published short stories and things. I'm really interested in getting into writing for games. Games had always been another interest of mine, and particularly sort of interactive storytelling. As I say, I used to love game books. I was interested in the ways that, stories could be told in an interactive way. So I put a post on there saying, if anybody's interested, just hit me up. I'll do a bit of writing for free for your game. And a few people did, and Paul was one of the first people who did, in fact. So I did some bits and pieces with Paul ages ago, long before Cryptmaster. And I met other people there, like Richard Svensson. I later went on to do the writing for Valheim for him. I worked on a game with him for quite a long time that didn't end up getting released, but it was kind of like a proto Valheim. And so anyway, I started writing bits and pieces for games like that. And it just gradually grew. And I started making solo games myself as well and entering game jams, writing sort of interactive fiction. I wrote an interactive novel for Choice of Games called Ironheart. And I started to pick up other bits of work as well. I got bits of work for games like Trackmania Turbo. I did some writing for that. And then later on, gradually picked up more bits of work. I did some bits for Epic through Mediatonic, as it was at the time, on Fall Guys and PC Building Simulator. And eventually I took the plunge. Well, I got promoted at work when I was a teacher, but it was one of those sort of backhanded promotions where you kind of get promoted out of your comfort zone, because I'd been a teacher in SEN, and then I got promoted to be a SENCO, which is an SEN coordinator. And rather than spending time with the kids, which was what I loved, it was much more paperwork and meetings, which I'll be the first to admit I'm not great at. I'm not the world's most sort of organized person in that way. So I was struggling a bit with that, and I was thinking, I don't think I'm the right person for this job either. This is not my strength. This is not what I was good at doing. And around that time, I started to get offers for things that I could go full-time games writing. And so I just took the plunge just before the pandemic, and left teaching, went full-time games development. I had about a year when nothing happened at all, and I was starting to think, I'm going to have to go back to teaching. And then Paul got in touch. We'd done a lot of things on and off over the years in the past, and he got in touch and said, look, I want to have another go at making a game myself, and I'd like you to be involved if you're free. And we gave ourselves an amount of time, basically, until we were going to have to return to do other things for other people. And we got the prototype together really quite quickly, within about 6 months. And then we just started pitching it around to publishers, and it got picked up. And that's how I ended up here. I'm sorry for rambling so much, actually. That was a very long explanation of how I got into games development. But as you can see, it wasn't a normal route.
It's great that you're sharing everything with us. This is amazing. Do you actually miss teaching from time to time?
I do miss teaching. Yeah, I do. I miss the classroom aspect of it and working with the kids. I do miss that. I still go back in and do bits and pieces in schools sometimes. I used to when I was teaching, I used to make it. I was with a lot of the kids I taught specifically, it was a very good way of getting them engaged, was making video games together as a class. And there's a lot you can learn through that. Lots of different because you've got to do the art, the writing, the design, the coding, lots of different skills. You've got to collaborate with each other. It was always a really nice project to do with the class. So I go back into local schools occasionally and do bits and pieces like that, which I really enjoy because I do miss that side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Will you go back at some point, or maybe part-time?
If the games development continues to do okay, then I probably won't, if I'm honest. Because teaching nowadays it's a stressful career, and I did over a decade of it, and but I do miss working with the kids. I don't miss the other side of it. I don't miss the paperwork and the politics.
Who needs that?
and that sort of thing. But I do miss working with the kids. So I'm in quite a nice position now that I can kind of go back in and do bits and pieces, and work with small groups and that sort of thing. And I would like to do more of that actually in the future, but probably won't return to be sort of full-time teacher. I'm getting on now. I'm not young anymore, and I'm always. Paul keeps reminding me. I don't know why he does. He keeps reminding me. Oh, we've only got so many more games left in us.
Oh,
So I'm getting conscious of that.
you got many, 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 many more. So
Thank you very much. I hope so.
what moment in your journey as indie developers will you always remember?
For me, the standout moment for me was we won the IGF Design Award in San Francisco last year,
Cool.
and that was amazing. That was really surreal for me because I live on a little island off the coast of England. I didn't get out an awful lot. I think, I live in the, sort of on the edge of the countryside here. And I just, when you're making the game, you're just working. I'm just working from this little room. Paul's the same in New Zealand. You don't really realize that you're doing something that lots of people are going to see and potentially enjoy. And so to go to San Francisco and go to a big award ceremony and get up on stage to sort of waffle about your game, that was a real thrill for me. So yeah, I'll always remember that, I think.
What's the best part of developing your own game, and what's the most challenging?
I think the best part is just the freedom. I mean, I've worked on lots of games I've enjoyed before for bigger studios. So I've did bits of writing for Fall Guys, PC Building Simulator, Trackmania, different things. But when it's your own game, and especially when there's just the two of us. I mean, I don't want to suggest it was only Paul and I, because we had a couple of additional artists, the translators, the voice actors, sound design, Starashu, who's the composer, who's amazing. So I should just quickly mention all those other people in case I give the impression if it's only Paul and I. But we were the sort of core for most of the development. We got together the prototype our own. And so when it's just the two of us really determining the direction of the game, it's lovely just to have that freedom in a small team. It doesn't feel, I'll be honest, it doesn't feel like work a lot of the time. We'll just sort of be chatting about what we want to do, and we come up with all these weird ideas and test them out and see what works, see what doesn't. It's just it's kind of when you're a kid, it's what you imagine making a video game is like, and which is not the reality in sort of bigger studios. But that's the lovely thing about having a small team. But then of course it does have its downsides as well. First of all, you've got to be a lot more careful with what you put into you've only got very limited resources. You've only got limited time, the two of you to do things. So you've got to figure out what you can and can't do. You have to throw out a lot of ideas because they're just beyond the scope of what we can manage. And sometimes also, I guess it's, you have to manage. I think the publishers, Akupara, were great for this. As soon as they came on board, they were, they would give us lots of feedback on the game and play the game as well. And that's something you need when you're a small team, because you can get too close to it yourselves and not realize. I remember the first time we sort of let other people play the game, and they were just really confused by a lot of it. And they were confused by things that we hadn't picked up on, because when it's just us playing and we've designed the game, you can't see what a player is going to see when they come into it cold. There are lots of plus points and minus points to being in a really a really small team or partnership like that, I think. But for me, I love it. It's, the pluses outweigh the minuses by a long way.
If you could send a message back in time when you started out as a game developer, what would you write?
That's a very interesting one. I think if I could send a message slightly further back in time than that, I would tell myself to start developing games earlier. As I say, I had decades of doing all sorts of other things, some of which I enjoyed, like the teaching, some of which I didn't really enjoy that much. I would send a message back to a much younger me and say, look, just go for it now. You'll really like this, and you'll be surprisingly good at it. You won't believe it now, but you're going to be all right at it, and you're going to love it. So, do it now instead of being, a security guard or farmhand or whatever I was doing at the time. But if I was to go back to the early days of when I was starting to develop, I don't know, really. I was quite lucky. A lot of the contacts I made early on, as I say, the first sort of people that I got friendly with in the games industry, I'm still friendly with and sort of working with. I remember some of the first people I met were Paul, Alan Trevette. I made a game called Spirits of Xanadu with him. He's amazing. Richard Svensson, who did Valheim, and Lucas Pope, who obviously did Papers, Please and Obra Dinn. So these are some of the first sort of contacts I made, really, and I couldn't have wished for a better way in. I've rambled right round the question again, but I guess to answer it directly, I would probably just say to myself, look, just carry on.
Just do it.
Have a bit of faith, just do it, just carry on, it's fine.
As we already mentioned, you developed the game with Paul Hart, a programmer and artist of the game. So Paul is based in New Zealand, you are based in the UK. How do you two manage to work across time zones? Is one of you staying awake, or are you just writing messages to you?
We mostly just write messages. I used to think Paul was always awake. He does keep quite odd hours, I think. I used to joke that he must be a vampire or something, because whenever I typed a message to him, he would be there.
Oh, really?
So like, when do you sleep? I don't understand when you sleep. And he would say, I'll just nap now and then. I just nap in between things. But no, I think it actually works for us, because a lot of the time now we do, we're a couple of old dinosaurs, really. We were upset when they ended Skype recently, because we used, all through the development of Cryptmaster, we just used Skype. And mostly we just leave messages for each other. And I think it helps, because I think, we've got a really good partnership, Paul and I think we work very well with each other. I hope he would say the same thing. But we don't always agree about things, and we quite often, in fact, especially in the early stages of making Cryptmaster and of making this new game, we're quite often at odds. We're pulling in different directions, but we're both of us quite, we've got enough experience now. We're quite thick-skinned. We don't really, and we also know at heart, he knows that I think he's an amazing artist, coder, designer, and I know, or at least I hope I do, I tell myself that he knows that I'm a decent writer and designer. So we've got respect for each other's disciplines, for what we do. So when we sort of when we are at odds about something, we always work it out in the end. One of us will, we're neither of us afraid to say, when something we were proposing hasn't worked out. We're quite good, I think, both of us, at saying, actually, you were right, ditch that idea. I think we'd have more friction if we were in the same room together, if that makes sense. I think we would probably argue and sulk a bit more. But it's all right when it's messages, because Paul can write something in a message that I might agree with, and I can read it and think, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't like that idea. But then I can go away and carry on about my day and type a message back to him an hour later. And I'm sure he does the same thing to me as well. So we just seem to have accidentally hit on something that works. So we're trying not to mess with it. And we just leave each other messages. Now and then, of course, we will have a talk. We'll have a call together and go through things when we really feel we're making progress. Yeah, we both contribute to the build. Paul's a much better coder than I am. I can't really claim to be much of a coder at all, but I kind of know my way around Unity enough that the things that I'm working on, I can add in. And sometimes he'll set up tools so that I can add them in. without breaking anything because he knows otherwise I will break things.
No.
Yeah, it just seems to kind of work out.
Oh, that's perfect. I mean, if you have found a way, then that's great. It's fascinating that it works.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing I wouldn't recommend to anybody necessarily as being, like, this is the best way to make your game. Probably for most people it wouldn't be, but it just seems to have worked for us. Yeah.
Are you guys also planning on starting a business together? Like having your own game developing studio with employees?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about employees. I don't know. That would kind of change the dynamic a bit. Again, I kind of think we've got something that works. We should just stick with this. I mean, we've got lots of people we collaborate with who are amazing. Like I mentioned earlier, Sarashu, who does the music, he's just fantastic. And so there are certain people we'll always want to kind of bring along. But in general, I think, I mean, a lot of people keep saying to me, oh, you should be a bit more serious, business minded, and, maybe be looking into starting a proper studio rather than just using your names, which is what we've done so far. So I don't know. We did try to have a studio earlier, in the sense that we wanted to make a studio name for ourselves rather than just be Paul Hart and Lee Williams, but we couldn't. We just made ourselves giggle with name suggestions for a studio, and then we never settled on anything.
Yeah, maybe someday.
Maybe someday. Yeah, I quite like the thought. We did talk a bit about maybe the Cryptmaster will set up a studio, because we're terrible at self promotion. We find it kind of embarrassing to do that kind of thing, marketing and self promotion. We both really struggle with that. But I can do it as the Cryptmaster. All the social media is handled by the Cryptmaster, because I can do that. Then it's not me; it's him doing it. So maybe
that's actually an amazing idea. You should do that. Yeah,
he
seriously.
should maybe have the studio. Yeah.
Yes, I think people will love it.
Yeah, I think that's quite seriously, I think, possibly on the cards.
Yeah, can't wait. You're based in the UK. How is the indie game development scene like in your area? Is there's maybe anything that's unique about it?
It's really nice. It's lovely. I mean, a lot of people are going through difficult times at the moment, obviously, the games industry in general. I met up with a lot of people at Develop in Brighton, which is probably the biggest UK-based kind of event. Yeah, a lot of people are struggling at the moment, but it's a really nice, friendly game scene for developers in the UK. Lots of people just supporting each other. It's, I can honestly say I've always felt it to be, very supportive, very friendly. As to particular things with the UK compared to other places, I'm not really sure. I'm probably not the ideal person to ask either, because, as I say, I don't get off the Isle of Wight where I live very often. So I'm not really. I try to get to a few events now. I've been to GDC the last 2 years, which is it's a big deal for me to go that far afield. And I get to Develop in Brighton, and some of the other things I'll go to Adventure X later this year. But in general, I don't tend to get many opportunities to mix with other developers, I guess. Well, I've made a lot of great friends in the community, but yeah, even the work I've done for larger studios, I've always done remotely. I've never done anything in the office, so to speak.
Yeah, but that's also absolutely fine, I think. Just being connected remotely with several people, and if you found some great friends, I mean, that's the most important thing.
That's it. Yeah.
Cryptmaster was published by Acapara Games. How did this co-op come to life? For instance, did you explicitly search for a publisher?
We did. We looked into a lot of publishers. We made a prototype of the game. As I say, we gave ourselves, I think it was only about 6 months, and we said, right, we'll really put our heads down. Well, we both of us had a little bit of sort of financial breathing room just after I came out of teaching, and Paul had come into a little bit of money that allowed him to, he'd been doing work on kind of apps and lots of different things, and been working for different studios. But we thought, right, we'll have about 6 months. We'll just really, put our heads down and see if we can make a decent prototype. And we had Cryptmaster, really, the prototype that we then pitched around to game studios. A lot of the feedback on it, people were surprised it was so polished, between the two of us, as I say, most of it's Paul because he did the coding and the art, but between the two of us, we had the skills to make quite a really decent sort of demo version, and it was pretty much the first level of Cryptmaster as it is now, really. Bar a little bit of polish and detail, it was pretty much as it is. And we pitched that around to a number of different publishers. We were lucky, we had quite a lot of interest in it, and we went with Acapara in the end. We really liked them. We really thought they could see what we wanted to do with the game. And they were also keen to just sort of give us free reign. They said more or less, okay, we'll fund you to make this game, and we'll bring on the things you need. So we'll get voice acting arranged, a couple of additional artists we needed to flesh out some of the areas and the NPCs, and they just sort of left us to it. They just trusted our sort of vision for the game, which was wonderful. And I can't fault them at all. I know there are lots of. I hear lots of horror stories about various relationships between publishers and developers, but we had a really positive experience with Acapara. They were great.
Do you have any advice for indies hoping to get funding or find a publisher?
I think nowadays, even more than when we pitched, I think publishers like to see, and this is hard for a lot of people. It's hard for larger teams, especially. I think publishers do like to see a fully working kind of prototype or vertical slice of the game. That seems, and from what I gather from talking to people recently, that seems to be like a must now for a lot of publishers. It used to be more the case that I think you could get something on, like, this is our track record, this is our team, this is our pitch, our idea, and you could get that funded quite often. It seems, from what I gather, again, as I say, I'm kind of going from hearsay a bit here, but it seems that it's a lot harder to do that in the current state of the industry. And of course that's difficult if you've got a larger team, because you've got to, everybody's got to live for the amount of time it takes for you to make that prototype. But I mean, I think that's what helped me and Paul anyway when we pitched Cryptmaster, was that the feedback we had from most publishers was that they were really impressed with the quality of the prototype and the amount of work and detail we put into it. They could see from it exactly what the game was going to be, and get a sense for how it would work as a full game. It was just a question for us. It was just a question of adding content. We had all the systems in place when we pitched it, the demo. So I think that's probably more important, as I say, nowadays than it was then, to have a really good proof of concept.
That's really good advice. That's really interesting. Yeah, you already mentioned that you are already working on a next project with Paul. We are really looking forward to it. Do you already have, I don't know, a name or time frame when we can expect more news or maybe a release?
Hopefully we'll start talking about it fairly soon. It's a sore point that you brought up the name because we're debating the name at the moment, and this is one of those times that I was talking about where we're kind of to and fro on it, and he comes up with names that I'm like, I don't really like that, and then I'll come up with names and he'll be like, nah, that's not. I'm not feeling. So we're to and fro on the name at the moment. It's going to be. I don't mind saying a bit about what it's likely to be though. It's going to be, I think, a sort of Wizard's Tower simulator, if you like. So you'll play as a sort of mage character in a tower, and there will be a sort of it will be very puzzly, very lore heavy, but lots of interesting mechanics, hopefully, as well. And in tone, I think fairly similar to Cryptmaster, probably a little bit more serious than Cryptmaster, as in it won't be such an outright parody, but it will still hopefully be sort of darkly funny. I want to continue. One of the things I really liked in Cryptmaster, watching people play it, was, as I mentioned to you earlier, I think that I wanted to create almost like a sort of interactive sitcom, if that makes sense. Yeah. That you were sort of staging moments for the player that are funny and that feel like you have a relationship with the characters in the game, and having them respond to lots of different things. So in this game, for example, the sort of Cryptmaster character, if you like, will be there will be an imp that you have to share your tower with, and he'll be really fussy and house proud and kind of annoying in a Cryptmaster sort of way. So I want to almost to force players into this sort of weird sitcom where they're a mage having to live side by side with this cranky, weird imp character. The more I'm talking about it now, do you know, I think you might even be the first person outside of other than Paul that I've spoken to properly about it. The more I'm talking about it, the more I'm thinking I don't quite know how to explain it. But yeah, that's what we're making at the moment anyway. Hopefully it's going to turn out well. I'll get back to you and have a proper elevator pitch for it.
Amazing. Yeah, can't wait for it. Yeah, that's really, really great. And can't wait for more news on that.
Thank you.
And yeah, maybe, as you said, New Game Plus for the Cryptmaster. So also really looking forward what news we have there very soon. And yeah, Lee, thank you so much for sharing all your stories and details on the game and giving advice to other indie developers. It was really, really great to have you on the show.
No, you're welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.